What's up, Node.js developers? Welcome back to another live stream. Today, we're going to build a full stack social media application such as Threads by Instagram. We're going to build this clone with React Native Expo, Supabase, and a lot of other cool tech that it's good to know nowadays in order to build full stack mobile applications. So let's have a look at exactly what we're going to focus on in this tutorial and what you will learn by building this together with me. So the Threads clone, if you don't know about it, this is a social media application created by Meta, by the Instagram team, that is very similar to how Twitter works. So it's a mostly text-based social media application. And by building this application, we are going to learn like the fundamentals of social media apps, and you can reuse the same knowledge to build any kind of social media applications with feed, with posts, with users, and so on. So we're going to start with a feed screen, which is going to show us a feed of posts. We're going to build the post. We're going to learn how to do that with up-to-date and performant tools. We're going to work on the post details page, and this is a bit different compared to other social media platforms where there are posts and comments. Here there are posts and sub-posts because every comment is kind of a post in itself. We're going to talk more about that later. We're going to be able to create new posts, or in this context, new threads. We're going to manage user profiles, and if we have time, we're going to implement the editing of user profile. So the tech stack for this application is going to be React Native and Expo. We're going to use Expo SDK 53, which at the moment of recording this video has been published a couple of days ago. So it's we're staying up to date with everything. We're going to use Expo Router to manage and implement navigation in our application. Expo Router, if you don't know, it's a file-based navigation system. We're going to simply create some folders and files, and Expo Router will set up the screens and the navigation between screens for ourselves. We're going to use NativeWind to style our application, and NativeWind is, in simple words, Tailwind CSS for React Native, and it's going to allow us to use class names to style our components. If you come from web, NativeWind is going to click very fast because you're going to have the same experience as you had on web using Tailwind CSS. We're going to use Supabase for our backend to implement the database, the authentication, the server functions if we're going to need any. And the database is going to use Postgres. We're going to learn a lot about that. We're going to learn how to secure stuff. And we're going to use TanStack query to get the data in our application and manage the cache, to cache the data locally. The learning goals, the main one is to help you build end-to-end applications, because you might have saw a tutorial or look through the docs, but when you try to build an application from start, from the idea all the way till a functional application, that's where the challenges appear. And by following this tutorial, I'm going to help you overcome those challenges and help you move along the way and show you different tools that you can use to speed up the development. We're going to learn how to use React Native and Expo to build mobile applications, both for iOS and Android. We're going to learn how to build and style modern UIs using NativeWind. We're going to use some AI tools to speed up our development because we live in 2025. And nowadays, without AI tools, it already feels like we are so slow. So I'm going to show you from time to time how to use these AI tools to generate code, but I'm going to explain all the major parts, and I'm going to give you like code snippets so that you can copy paste it in your system if you don't get like the same output from the AI tools. But learning how to use and leverage AI tools where it makes sense, I think it's a very good skill to learn and master nowadays. We're going to learn how to build a backend and connect it to our React Native application. We're going to implement the authentication system with Supabase Auth and also with Expo Router, because with Expo Router we're going to protect different screens in our application so only authenticated users will have access to them. We're going to design the database. We're going to create it. we're going to learn how to query the data and how to protect our data with row level security policies in a way to make sure that only the right data is available to specific users, and this is going to improve the security of your application so that not anyone can have access to the whole data. And lastly, we're going to use TanStack query to manage the remote data in React Native. And that's the plan for today. Everything is going to happen in this tutorial by the end. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's get started. Before we get started, as always, I prepare for you a step-by-step guide that is going to be very helpful to follow along this tutorial, because I will leave there code snippets, the source code of a project, and much more. And the to-do list, basically. To get access to it, go to notjust.dev/projects/threads. Here is notjust.dev. I'm going to go to tutorials, and it's the last one, the threads clone. And all you have to do is leave your email here, and then you're going to receive the URL to this Notion guide that you can use throughout this tutorial to help you. Like at the top here, we have some screenshots. Then it's like the step-by-step and code snippets and commands, links, resources, data, and so on, to make sure you follow along as easy as possible. And if there will be any updates, this is where we're going to write about them. So the first step is going to be to, we already saw the screenshots, but it's good to have them here, like to look back if we want to be like as close to pixel perfect as possible. My goal is not going to be super close to pixel perfect. My goal is to help like the end-to-end part to see how to connect everything together. But where possible, like I'm going to spend like a bit of time to adjust some stuff. All right, after the live stream, here is going to be the source code. You're going to have access to it. And the first thing is to set up a new project. And this part is going to take around 15 to 20 minutes, and it's going to be the boring part. We're going to set up a project. We're going to install the dependencies such as Expo Router. We're going to learn how to create the structure for our screens, learn about like the bottom tabs, just setting up the structure and preparing our workspace. Then we're going to also install and set up NativeWind, which has a little bit of steps. And yeah, this is the boring part, but I want to get it done at the beginning and then have fun building the application. So to follow it, you have two options. Either do it yourself or just watch this part, and I'm going to give you the starting code with all of these dependencies set up, so you can save some time, or if you have issues installing and configuring it, maybe later something is going to be different, then you can get the starting code and try that one out. So yeah, also we're going to try to leave the timestamps so you can navigate this tutorial easily. So as I said, the first step is going to be to set up a new project, install and configure Expo Router, install the NativeWind, and by here I'm going to give you the dummy data, and only then we're going to start building the UI. And why do I let me actually go ahead and get started. To set up a new project, what we have to do is open a terminal, navigate to a folder where we keep our project, and here using npx we're going to use the tool called create expo app. We're going to do at latest to make sure that we are using the latest version of this tool. If you have used it before, we don't want to reuse like an old version. I will go with a -- template, and I will select blank TypeScript because I want to show you all the steps. I don't want to start with a project that has a lot of configuration and files. I don't want to get you confused, and these templates will be changed in future. So the blank TypeScript, and then we give a name of the project, and I'm gonna call it threads. Let's press enter, and this command you can copy paste it from here, from the guide. Why don't start with a template that already has everything together? As I said, I don't want to confuse you because having a template like is going to have a lot of stuff. And sometimes you want to integrate some of the things that you learn here in an existing project. So I think knowing how to set up, for example, NativeWind is going to be helpful because you might want to integrate it in a project that you already built. So that's why I want to show you all the steps, even though I know this part is a little bit boring. Let's just go through it and then we're gonna get to the fun part of building UIs. Now that our project has been installed, all we have to do is open it in our editor of choice. You can do that with Visual Studio Code, you can do that with any other editor. In my case, I'm going to open it up with Cursor, which is an AI editor that has been built based on Visual Studio Code. So that's why it might look exactly like Visual Studio Code, but it has this chat here with which we can generate code right in our editor. You don't need to do that. You can use other editors, you can use GitHub Copilot, you can even use something that is not integrated in your editor to build and to use AI to generate code. You can use, for example, ChatGPT, for example, Anthropic or any other models from time to time when we need to do something. And also, yeah, I'm going to try to use it only in places where it's just time consuming to build like huge components. All right, now that we are here, let's go ahead and open a terminal. I'm gonna do that from window terminal, from terminal, new terminal, and here I'm going to I'm going to do npm start. This is going to execute npx expo start to start the metro server. And from here, I'm going to press I to open it on iOS simulator. The easiest way if you don't have Android Studio or Xcode would be to go ahead and download Expo Go on your physical device. And then having the Expo Go on the physical device, all you have to do is scan this QR code that you see here, and you're going to have application running in your hands on your physical device. However, if you want it on the machine, like on your PC, you have to install and set up Android Studio to get an Android emulator or Xcode to get the iOS simulator. And then you're going to be able to run it here. But the application is going to work both on Android and iOS. And by the end of the tutorial, I'm going to try to test it on Android to make sure that there are no issues there. Now we see application running inside the Expo Go application, and it says open up TSX to start working on your application. So if I go here in app.tsx, that's going to be our text, and we can change it to hello world. If I do that, it automatically auto refresh here, which means that our project has been initialized correctly. If I look in package.json, I just want to show you that I'm using the Expo version 53. The next step, now that we have our project installed and set up, is going to be to install and configure Expo Router. Because at the moment, app.tsx is one single screen. Usually in applications, we have multiple screens and we want to handle the navigation between them. And navigation in mobile applications is very specific because we have like some specific native navigation such as bottom tabs, drawer, stack navigators, which add some animations. So with Expo Router, which is built on top of React Navigation, which you might be familiar with, we get a file-based navigation system. Go ahead, open the installation guide, skip the quick start and go to manual installation. Let's go ahead and follow this guide. I'm going to go ahead and start by installing the dependencies such as Expo Router, safe area context, and so on. I'm going to actually stop this server by pressing Ctrl+C. If I'm not mistaken, I have a Windows keyboard, so it might be a different key. And here I'm going to do, I'm going to do npx expo install and paste like all the dependencies. The next step is going to be to go into package.json, and here in main, we are going to change this one to expo router /entry, and that's how we tell React Native like which should be the entry point in our application. The next step in app.json, where we configure things for our application, we need to add the scheme for our project, and I usually add it like somewhere here at the top after the slug. I will add a new key called scheme, and let's call it threads, or I'm going to say my threads. This scheme is what is going to be used for the deep links. So a deep link now, for deep linking, a deep link now in your application is going to be example, let's say my threads dot profile dot vadim. So this might be how a deep link will look in my application, and the scheme with my threads goes here where you usually see, for example, HTTP or HTTPS and so on. Perfect. Let's go back to the documentation to check if we did everything. Set up entry point. We modified the scheme. We can install the React Native Web and React DOM, and this will automatically add support for the web as well without us having to do anything extra. This is also awesome. And this is by default, the Metro bundle. The Babel config, this is also by default, and even we do not even have it here because behind the scenes, that if we don't provide a config for Babel, it's going to use this one. And that's it. Now we need to start the server. And I'm going to do that using npx expo, or let's do npm start, but I want to send a -- space -- clear flag so that Expo clears the cache. Now, if I press R to reload the applications or I to run it again on iOS, we're going to see the welcome screen from Expo. I don't know where it is. I saw it for a second. Yeah, welcome screen from Expo. We see this welcome screen when we didn't create the app folder. App folder is very important for Expo Router, because that's where Expo Router is going to look for the screens. You can create the app folder in the root directory, but I usually prefer to create it in the source directory. So first create the source, then create the app directory, and in the app directory we can move this app.tsx, and the only thing that we have to do is rename from app.tsx to index, because this is going to be the home screen. I mean, the first screen that Expo Router will load. It's going to be the one with the name index.tsx. And that should be it. If I'm going to press R to reload my application, we see hello world, which is coming from this index screen. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Hello, everyone. I didn't manage to say hi to the live chat. How are you doing, guys? We still have a little bit of setup here, but I just wanted to say hello and very big thank you for Mr. Frank for the donation. Fred's clone sounds awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Why you're not using Amplify anymore? Well, to be honest, like after started using Supabase, I just realized how inefficient and flawed Amplify is, not very developer friendly, and with Supabase using Postgres, being open source, being able to self-host it, being able to, yeah, like it's so much better. That's my why I stopped using Amplify. And I really love Postgres and all the possibilities, and the community, like it's very big, like there are a lot of developers building cool things, cool extensions for Postgres. And because Supabase is just built on top of Postgres, anything that is available for Postgres, you can use it in Supabase. So that's awesome. Hello, Sakib. Another great idea, and full stack is next level. Thank you very much. Why Expo? It's really hard to find a good tutorial without Expo. Well, the question is why not Expo? Because nowadays, like not using Expo, even the React Native team is recommending Expo. So if you go to React Native website, into the documentation, or let's say frameworks. yeah, even 1 year ago, the React Native team said we updated our guidance on the best tools to get started building React Native application, a React Native framework, a toolbox with all the necessary APIs. So basically, as of today, the only recommended community framework for React Native is Expo. So even React Native is recommending us using Expo. And there are other frameworks coming up. So yeah. Hey Vadim, you should check notjust. It's a strong backend framework written in TypeScript. I really love using it. Perfect, I'll have a look. Hello VS, can you show her how to fix a problem with jump keyword when we are using secure text entry? iOS problem, or maybe someone can tell me. I'll check like if we managed to get into this error today, and if yes, I will see like if we can fix it. Will we replicate the ultra cool swipe down to refresh vibration? I didn't plan that, but if we have time, enough time, we might do it. And also, yeah, we might do it. Anyway, let's get back if we want to manage everything in time. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, write them in the chat. I'm going to stop from time to time and answer your questions. But in order to manage everything, I'm going to have to be fully focused on, on delivering. And if you're still here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot. Now that you have done that, let's go ahead and continue. We have installed Expo Router, and we saw that a file in our app directory is a screen. And for example, if you're going to create another one, for example, about.tsx is going to be another screen that you can navigate to by navigating to /about. But in our app folder, there is one more specific file that is very important to understand, and that is the _layout.tsx. This _layout file is not actually a screen. It's the component that wraps around all the screens in this folder. Let's go ahead and export first, and then I'm going to continue explaining. Let's do export default function. This particular layout, because we are going to have multiple layouts in our application, is called the root layout. The name here doesn't matter, but I like to call it root layout because this layout is right inside the app folder, which means that any screen, anything in our application that is going to be rendered is going to go through this layout. So this is a great place where we can put global providers or things like that, but we need globally. If I'm going to return null here, which means like don't render anything, and if I will reload my application, we're going to see that we lost actually our screen. That's because Expo Router will first render the layout, and only then the layout itself is going to kind of render the screen. And because we return null here, we prevent rendering the screen. To go back to the previous functionality, we can import a slot from Expo Router, and we can render this slot. Rendering a slot means basically simply render the screen in this position, and it's very similar to how we would render children, for example. You can add things around the slot, on top of a slot, like if you have a header and so on, but the slot is going to be the page that we are rendering. And if you come here, as I said, like if you do console log root layout rendered, this is going to be the place where we can do global stuff. Because any screen that we're going to visit first is going to render the root layout. And if we wrap some context providers around the slot, every screen in our application will have access to the providers. Another thing here is that there are other navigators that we can import from Expo Router and render instead of a slot, and one of them is a stack. If we replace slot with stack, right away we get a header at the top from a stack navigator. So that's how easy it is to change and create different different layouts. I'm going to probably go back to a slot here. We're going to see later if we need something more than a slot. And I'm going to go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m. Let's do Expo Router setup. Install and configure. Perfect. Before we move on, if we look in our project, after installing the Expo Router, we also wanted to do to set up the navigation structure using the bottom tabs. If we look at the screenshots, the Threads application has a bottom tab navigation with home, search, and other icons. Let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Well, I could replace this slot with a component called tabs or a navigator called tabs. So if I replace it here, we see the tab at the bottom. However, I'm not going to do that because I'm pretty sure that the tabs is not going to be the root layout. It's not, because there will be other screens outside the tab navigation. And tabs is going to be like just one part of our application. For that reason, I'm going to create in our app folder a new folder called tabs, but I'm going to also put it in the brackets like this, because it's just a logical group of screens and I don't want the name of this folder to appear in the URL. I don't want to go to /tabs/home. I just want to go to /home. That's why I have these parentheses. If I go back here and I will go ahead and move the indexed TSX inside there, what we're going to see, if I reload, I still see hello world, because Expo Router is going to first search for the first index file that it can find, and that's going to be rendered as the home screen, as the first screen. However, if I want now to render this tabs navigation, I will create a new layout file in our tabs folder that is going to be the layout only for the screens inside this folder. And what I can do here, I can do export default function tabs layout, and I will simply return this tabs navigator that we can import from Expo Router. So if I do that, we get the tab at the bottom, but it's going to contain only the screens inside the tabs. So for example, if I'm going to create here another screen called search.tsx, it's not going to appear because we still have to export something. Let's do export default function search, return, let's do a text, return text saying search. And this text should be imported from React Native. If I return this default component from this file inside tabs, it's going to add as a new tab. So I can move there and I see search at the top. And I can move from index to search and we have a proper tab navigation. You might be, if it's the first time using Expo Router, you might be confused, like why do we have like two layouts here? Well, because not all the screens, as I was saying before, should be inside the tabs. We saw it by creating a file in the tabs folder, it automatically appears as a tab. But if we want, let's say, another file like the sign in or like the welcome, I can have it as a new file here called welcome.tsx. I can have kind of a same export welcome, but it's not going to appear as a tab. And if from the index file, I'm going to add here a link that I can import at the top from Expo Router, I can navigate to that /welcome screen by pressing on this welcome text that I have here. And if I do that, we see that component. It's not displayed very nicely because Yeah, I'll do here margin top 100. So we still see this welcome, but it is outside the tabs. So that's why we want to group things logically, and in these tabs we're going to only have the screens that are part of a tab navigator. So once we're here, let's go ahead and set up the other screens that we have in the bottom tab navigation. I don't think we need the welcome at this moment, so I'm going to remove it. But in the tabs folder, similar to how we have a search, I'm going to copy paste it once again and create what? The notification screen, notifications. And the last one is profile here. Let's do notifications and profile. Okay, the plus in the middle, we're going to think about that a bit later. For now, maybe in the profile, I can actually say profile, and here we can do profile screen. As you can see, like the names do not matter. Only the name of a file matters, because that's what is going to be used for, like, let's say the header and so on. But the names of the components, this is more for us to make sure that we're not confused, right? And the index is going to be our, in the index, I'm going to actually clean up a bit. I'm going to leave like, yeah, the hello world, let's say feed. That's going to be the home screen. I don't need the link, I don't need that one. So we have index, search, profile, and notifications. Let's go ahead and see how we can adjust the configuration, for example, changing the icons that we use here. To do that, we're going to go into the layout of the tabs folder where we render these tabs. And by default, if we do not specify anything, it's going to take and kind of take a do a guess, or maybe better said, like it's going to use the names of the files for the names of our screens. If, however, instead of having a self-closing tag, I'm going to have an opening tag and then a closing tab, and then between them I'm going to have tabs.screens, which are self-closing tag, and using a name property, I can target some of them. For example, if I target the index, I can send here some options such as the title, and I will say feed, or maybe home, I don't know, something like that. And if I do the same for the others, such as search is going to have a title search, notifications, title notifications with capital, profile with capital profile, we already see that the titles at the top and at the bottom for the labels, they are with capital letter. And these options, this is nothing more than React navigation options. So everything that you know from React navigations, you can do here. One of the things that you can do here is, for example, set the tab bar icon, which is a function that you can use to render one of the icons. For example, I'm going to go into the Expo vector icons. I'm going to open the first link, and I'm going to search, for example, for home. Let's see. Oh, Sonny, hello. How are you doing, brother? Let's see what icons is Fred's using. Okay, something maybe like this. Let's try this one. Feather. So I'm going to render this icon here, and I have to import it from expo/vector icons. And right away we have an icon at the bottom there. The cool thing is that this tab bar icon will also send us some props such as size and color, which are going to be dynamic, so we can send it down to the icon as size and the color as color. The color is dynamic because it depends on if we are on the active tab or not, and is going to use the highlight color of the navigator. And we can change it not on the icon side, but on the whole tabs navigator side. For example, with screen options, we can do tab bar active tint color black, for example. And we can have a black color instead of that blue for all of them. Perfect. Now I'm going to copy this tab bar icon to maybe all of them. And I'm going to find some icons to change all of them. I'm going to try to find from the same font family. So in filters, I'm going to select this font family. And I'm going to say, let's do search. It's actually search. So let's, for the tabs with the name search, I'm going to change the name of our icon to search. For notifications, noti or bell, maybe bell, or it was likes, yeah, hard. Yeah, let's do hard. For notifications, I'm going to do hard. And for the last one, profile, I need something like a user. Yeah, user looks good. Here, user. Perfect. So now we have all the icons here. There is also, like if we look at how threads are looking, they just have the icons without labels. We can do that at the tab level or at the whole navigator at the top here in the screen options of the tabs by sending something like label, tab bar label, tab bar show label false. And if you do that, it's only going to show the icons and not the labels, like this. Perfect. I like that. I like that. We can move on. Does NativeWind slow down performance in production? No, it shouldn't. This is front-end cloned by me. So far, we're building the front-end, but very soon we're going to get in the back-end as well. Let's go ahead and do a git add git commit -m expo bottom tabs git. Yeah. And before we move on, maybe I'm going to also show you how to handle a little bit the dark mode, because most of the things that we're going to do probably are going to look better if we do them dark mode. One thing that we need to look at is in the app.json, there is here the user interface style. User interface style here, light, is basically overriding the system. You can override it with dark. And if you do that, it's going to, for example, at the top, we do not see the clock. Or you can do automatic, and this is going to take it based on the color scheme of the, how's it called, of the phone. So if I change this one to, how do I change it? Forgot. It should be A. Features. Should be Command A on the simulator to change it the dark mode, but I don't see it working. But basically, by having it automatic, it's going to follow the system. Yeah, it's working actually. So if I do Command Shift A, we see at the top that the status bar at least changes. So I'm going to leave it automatic here. And I'm going to put my device in the dark mode. You can also override it to dark mode here if you will only want to support dark mode. Now, in the root layout here, there is a way to change the theme of our whole navigation system. To do that, I'm going to import, for example, dark theme. from React Native. I always forget the import. React navigation / native, and here we're going to import the theme provider, and also we can import a dark theme. And if I'm going to wrap around the slot the theme provider, and I'm going to give a theme provider the value of dark theme, we're going to see that our navigation is going to use dark theme. You can also have this theme depending on the preference of the user or the system, and support both light and dark mode. I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to use the dark theme. And I'm going to also show you how you can adjust some of these colors. For example, you can define a new my theme, and you can simply copy everything from the dark theme. Because if we do command press on the dark theme, you're going to see that it has some simple colors and fonts. If you want to adjust some of this stuff, we can override. For example, colors.primary, I can override that, such as colors. When overriding, also, colors, also make sure to destructure, or basically keep all of our colors and only override the ones that you want. For example, I don't know, primary, let's say red. Where do we see this red color? Well, if I'm going to go into the tabs layout, and I'm going to say tab bar active tint color, I'm not going to override that. It should suppose to use the one from the theme. But I forgot to send this theme to the theme provider here. So if I do that, you see that the primary color is going to be used in places where we want, where the navigation highlights stuff, or in the back buttons and so on. Maybe as a primary color, I'm going to do like full white. Yeah, something like that. I think it'll look good even for the back button. Perfect. Now that we have done that, let's go ahead and say git add commit navigation dark theme, something like that. Okay, perfect. We have our structure for this one. If you want to go crazy, you can even take the color, but I will not do that. Maybe later. To take the actual color here of this background, let's say, because I don't think it's super black. And I copied that one. Come on, where is it? And you can say background. If I do red, I always do background red to check if it's the one that I'm looking for. No, I'm looking for, if I look into the dark theme here, background, I think I'm looking at the card. If I do card red, yes, the card is going to be like the background of a navigator, header, bottom, and so on. So if I paste the color from here, which is 10, 10, 10, come on, should be 10, 10, 10. This is going to be closer to actually threads, like not a pure black, but a very dark one. Perfect. Let me do git status, git add, git commit amend. All right. So what's happening here with these dots? We are done with setting up our Expo Router and the navigation. Now it is time to install NativeWind, and this is going to be almost the last part of the boring stuff of setting and configuring everything up. Let's go ahead and open NativeWind documentation. And as I was saying before, NativeWind is basically Tailwind CSS brought to React Native. So with NativeWind, we can use Tailwind CSS classes such as flex, size, shadow, P7, rounded to XL, and so on to style our components. If you have experience with Tailwind, no explanation more needed, like you most probably love using it and you're going to feel right at home. If you don't have experience with Tailwind, this is a great opportunity to learn it because it's an amazing tool used by so many web developers to style components. And it's a utility first framework of styling, of applying styles, where Tailwind brings a lot of possible, very common classes such as flex, and behind the scenes it applies some styles to it, such as flex1. So instead of writing like objects in our React Native applications or CSS on the web, we are rather writing these class names. And in a lot of cases, like it's much easier to remember and much easier to write when you already have some understanding and have some experience with using it. Maybe at the beginning it will be a bit slower, but as you learn these classes, you're going to feel so that you're building everything so much faster and your designs are going to be more consistent overall, because using such a thing as a Tailwind, it comes with some restrictions that allows us to stay consistent. So anytime you're going to need something like a class name, come to Tailwind CSS, go to the quick search and say, hey, I need some margin to apply to a component. And you're going to see that this is, to do that, we do m dash and a number. And that number might be m dash, I don't see like the actual number here, but it can be m-1 or m-8, and that's going to add some margin to the component. Not 8 pixels, but the eighth margin, so the 8th value. Anyway, let's go to NativeWind and go ahead into the installation, select Expo SDK, and we're going to go to installing with Expo SDK here. First, I'm going to copy the dependencies, and I'm going to go back in our project and in a new terminal, paste these all dependencies such as NativeWind, Tailwind CSS, Reanimated, and React Native Safe Area Context. Back here, we need to set up Tailwind CSS configuration, and we can either copy paste this one here, or we can run npx Tailwind CSS init to initialize this configuration file. This is going to create this Tailwind config, which we should adjust a little bit. In the content, we need to specify what folders, where should Tailwind look to see what classes are actually used, because in production is going to get rid of the rest that are not used. So we're going to say that, hey, look into the source, and I'm actually going to remove this one from here. In the documentation, it only shows the up directory, but if you have components and other things like that, it's not going to work. So you can take this one from documentation, put it in your place, and replace up with source, because this what is going to do is going to look in any subdirectory of the source folder, and it's going to look at any file with any name that ends with GS, GSX, TS, or TSX. So basically, any folder and any file with this extension in the source folder is going to be taken into consideration for Tailwind. If I go back, another thing that we need to add is these presets. So let's copy this line and add it right after the content. Try to follow along, but if you fail something, it's okay, because I'm going to give you this all configuration, the starting code I'm going to give you. And that's it with Tailwind config. Next, we need to create a file called global CSS and paste these 3 lines of code. We're going to create it in the root directory. I'm going to create global.css, and I'm going to import here Tailwind base components and utilities. This is also a configuration for Tailwind. Next step is we need to add the Babel preset and also to modify the metro config. If we go back in our application, we're going to see that we do not have these files because by default, Expo is kind of hiding these files for us in order not to get confused, because in most cases, we don't need to change them. Now we actually need to customize them, and to get back those files, we can run npx expo customize, press enter, and here there are a lot of files that we can customize. I'm going to press space for Babel. I'm going to go down and press again space for metro. And if I press enter now, it's going to create these 2 files. Let's first go into babel.config. And we see that in the step 3 here, we need to add these 2 presets. Babel preset expo, which has like configuration. So let's take this. Let's remove Babel preset expo as it is right now. And let's paste this one here. Mind that here we have an opening array, and Babel presets expo now is inside a tuple which is like kind of another array, because it already has some configuration. So mind, like if you're doing these changes, mind that you need 2 arrays here, one for this line and one for the whole presets. What else do we need here? Well, that's it for Babel config. For metro, we need to import with NativeWind at the top. So let's open metro at the top, say with NativeWind. And where we export config, instead of that, we're going to copy this line and wrap this config. As you can see, we wrap the config inside the with NativeWind, and we say where is this global.css file. Well, in the same directory, global CSS. If you put global CSS in source, make sure to adjust here the file to specify where it is. Okay, perfect. Here we are done. The next step is we need to import the CSS file somewhere in our application as soon as possible. In here in the documentation, it says app.js. We need to import the global CSS. In our case, I was explaining that the root layout, which is inside app layout, is a file that is basically the first file that is rendered when our application is opened. And this is where we need to add like global configurations. So that's why right at the top here, I'm going to import global CSS, but mind that we are already inside 2 folders inside. So I'm going to have to adjust this relative path to // and then global CSS. Is that correct? I think so. Next, modify app.json. This one is by default. And TypeScript configuration is optional, but very easy to do. So let's just open TypeScript guide. And we see that we need to create the file with this name in the root directory. Come on. NativeWind-env.d.ts, and add this line of code with exactly how it is, with triple slashes referencing the NativeWind types. Now we're going to have TypeScript support for NativeWind classes as well. And if I go back, I think that's everything. And to test it out, what I'm going to do is, obviously I'm going to say, I'm going to find the terminal that is running my application. I'm going to stop the server and start it again. Important with -- clear, because we've done changes to our metro config and we need to clear the cache. And I'm going to reload the application or rerun it. Okay, it is running, but let's see if we can apply some class names. If I'm gonna go into the tabs index, which is this component here, and if I will give this text a class name, that is going to be text free XL, which will say make it this text large, we see that it automatically updates. If I'm going to say font bold, it's going to be bold. If I will say font red or text, as you can see, I also don't remember all of them, but if I say text red 900, it's going to update, or let's do 500 to see it better. It's here. So as you can see, we can now use Tailwind classes in our React Native component. That means that no longer are we going to use style sheet. So I'm going to remove this one. However, in some cases, it's okay to mix and match style sheets with class names. That's totally fine. And if you have to do it, go ahead and do it. Nothing wrong with that. As you saw, like it's also working. For example, this text can also have a style that is going to say font, or let's say margin 10. This is helpful like sometimes when we have dynamic properties that depend on some state. It's much easier to do that through style than through class names, but it's possible with both solutions. So as you can see, it's working in both cases as well. Perfect. One more thing, I have a link there. I highly encourage you to go ahead and search and install the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension for your VS Code if you're using VS Code, because that's going to give you these auto completions, and that's going to be very useful because even I don't remember all of the class names. Even for example, if I want to do padding, I can do p dash and then I can scroll down to select a value from here. And the important thing is that we do not have like every number there. For example, p30 is not going to work. It's either p32 or p28. So having this IntelliSense is going to be crucial because it can also, if you hover over these classes, it's going to show like what styles it's applying. So P2 is applying 0.5 rem or at 8 pixels. Font bold is applying font weight 700. Text free XL, this is what styles is applying. So it's very helpful and it's going to change the way you're using Tailwind. And always, if you need help, go ahead and use Tailwind CSS documentation. Yes, the name is NativeWind, but NativeWind is just bringing Tailwind to React Native. So at the end of the day, you're using Tailwind CSS. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and say git add git commit -m setup Tailwind. Is it Tailwind? I already forgot. NativeWind. NativeWind. Perfect. And this is more or less like our configuration. There are a couple of other things that I wanted to show you. Well, maybe to clean up some stuff here. Text white. P4. I don't know, we're gonna fix it and implement like the UI a bit later. I just didn't want to have like that weird hello world. All right. One thing that I didn't do is the path aliases. Well, later on we're going to have like components and import stuff and maybe move around screens. And a cool thing is going to be, instead of using relative paths, we can go ahead and create NTS config under compiler options. using base URL and paths, we can create path aliases so that we can use a path aliases instead of relative paths. So anything that we do import from @/ what is going to happen is going to look inside the source /. So for example, later in the source, we're going to have components folder, and in the components, maybe you're going to have, like, I don't know, a button.tsx, export default, I don't know, let's do pressable. Hello. Now this button in our application, one way, like if we didn't have like path aliases, we had to do relative paths. So we have to always do .. Think like, do we need to go more? Yeah, probably more. Components button. And that's how we import with relative paths. Then if we move these folders around, these relative paths will break. And it's going to give you a lot of headache. However, by having this tsconfig that maps any URL, any import path from @/ to source /, what we can do in index, we can replace this one with @ and we know that @ / is similar to the source folder, to source /. So from source, we go into components and button. And having this one here, it's going to allow us to change the screens around here, add more folders, and it's always going to remain the same because it's not relative, it's using like a path alias. And it's still going to work. I don't see it because most probably like the text here is white. So with a class name, text white. Oh, come on. It's there. I don't need this button at the moment, so not to forget, I'm going to delete it. But the whole concept is going to help us later when we create these components. This index file is from the old template that was when this index file was used before we had Expo Router, so we can safely delete it. What else? Well, I think that should be good. I'm going to do git add, git commit path aliases. Okay, for the data, that's also something that is going to help us. And the first thing that I want to do is define some types, because later we're going to use AI tools to generate data, to generate components, UIs, and so on. And having a type that defines what is our data going to look like is going to help us a lot in using AI, because the type is going to give the AI context of what data we are working with. So this type is going to help us generate dummy data. It's going to generate SQLs to create tables. It's going to help us even generate UIs. So sorry for that. So as I was saying, like if we define this type, not only will it help us in our project for the TypeScript, but it's also going to help us interact and use AI tools to generate and help us implement code. What's going on? Did I forget the button somewhere? Yeah. So what I want you to do is inside the source, let's go ahead and create a new file called types.ts. For the types, we're going to create them ourselves. And in a project like a social media application, the two most important types are, let's do export type user and export type post. These are the two most important things. Well, because we're going to use a database, let's say that both user and type is going to have an ID of type string. Maybe at the database layer is going to be a bit different, but for now it's good. Now we need to look basically at our UI to understand like what data do we need about each. For example, for a user, we're going to need, if looking at the profile side, we're going to have a name, a username, a bio, and an image. Let's do that. So username, let's do name of type string, let's do image of type string, and let's do bio of type string. Maybe bio even optional? I don't know. Let's leave it like this. For now, we are good with that. It's going to allow us to display things. For the post, however, what do we need? The post will have information about the content. Well, if we look at the top, the time when it was posted, for example, 21 hours ago, that is going to be the created at, which is going to be a string. And that, even though it's a date, we're going to store it as a string. The content is going to be like what are we writing, the message in that one. And then it has information about the user who posted it. So it's going to have, let's do it like, it's going to have a user underscore ID of type string that is going to link to this user. And for now, maybe we are going to also say, it's going to also have a user, actually a user information that later is going to be fetched from here based on user ID. Now, not sure if we need that right now, but we can also say that a post in an application like Twitter and Threads, a very important aspect of this application is that there are actually no comments. The comments are posts in themselves. In Twitter, if you post a comment, that's still a tweet. It's not how in Instagram or in LinkedIn or Facebook, where we have like strictly comments under a post. We just tweet in response to another tweet, but it doesn't make it a comment. It's the same type of post. That's quite important, and it's going to be fun to implement, because we're, instead of having another type of for comment, as AI is suggesting me here, we're still going to have a post, but it can be in response to something. And that in response to something, we can say that is going to be the parent ID, which can be either a string or null. So if it's a response, is going to be the ID of a parent. If it's a new post, not a reply, it's going to have parent ID null. And then having the parent ID, we can also get the parent of type post or null. And children is going to be what? Replies? What's going on? I hope my streaming setup is still working. YouTube crashed, but let me know if I'm live and everything is going well. And the post itself will also have a list of replies, which is going to be an array of other posts, depending on, like the relationship of a parent ID. Well, perfect. These are the initial types that we're going to use. So let me go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m types. I'm going to also copy paste them in the Notion guide, so you are going to have them access to them easily. So if you're using the guide live, just refresh the page. If you open it, you're gonna have access to it. Now I want to generate some dummy data with which we're going to start building our UI. For the dummy data, I'm going to go into the source and create a new file called dummydata.ts. Or let's create, let's do that. Dummydata.ts. And what I'm going to do here And you can do that with ChatGPT or other stuff. In my case, I'm going to open dummy data, and I'm going to press Command L to open a new chat here. And I will add context. I will add the types file. Can I add source? Not the whole source. I want to add types file in the context, saying that, come on, generate dummy data for, let's say, 5 users and 15 total posts based on the types.ts file. I will do generate, and it's going to look into this types file. It's going to see what is the structure we need, and it's going to generate this code in dummydate, should be dummydata.ts. In your case, you can simply do the same prompt, generate dummy data for this, and simply copy paste the types in ChatGPT if you are not using like an IDE powered AI. If I look into the dummy, as you can see, it created a new file called dummy data. It has dummy users of type user array, has name, username, and so on. That's good. It has some dummy posts. That's also good. Let's just do accept. And that's it. Now I can remove the old file dummy date. And this is going to be the data that we're going to work with. I just want to check if these avatars are going to work. Do you think they're As I see, like they're working. I'm not sure if they are going to work like forever. So maybe when you're watching this video, check like if they are still working. If not, you can tell AI to use some URLs that you predefine. I'm going to copy the whole dummy data. I'm also going to give you here in source dummy data if you need to copy paste them. But now that we have them, I will commit to the source code, to the repository. Git commit -m dummy data. And what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to go ahead and create the repository on GitHub. Let's call it Fred's clone. Let's make it public. I'm going to copy this remote thing. I'm going to say git status, git paste this one, git push origin main. And this is the repository. This repository, you're going to have access to it in the guide. Right now, I'm even giving you the link. So go ahead and open it through the guide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new check out -b, a new branch called start. And I'm going to push this start branch. I'm going to move back to my main. So I'm going to continue working in the main, meaning that the main branch is going to continue the final code of the solution. But if you go on GitHub, you see that there are the start branch, which I'm not going to touch. It's going to contain the configuration of Expo Router, of Tailwind, and the starting project at this moment. So you can always clone and use this branch to start working from here if you want the fun part without doing the boring stuff, or I'm actually going to do what? Download zip, and I'm also going to maybe add it to the guide so you can start. Where is it? here. Branch repository or download it from below. Perfect. Here is the zip you can download and start from here. And what we're going to do, we're going to start working on the UI, because the next step in our guide is building the UI and the post list item. Perfect. How is it? How is everyone doing, guys? Let me check Git status. Everything good. Perfect. Let's go ahead and start working on our application. And what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the UI, and we're going to start with the feed and the post list item. Because on the feed, we need to go ahead and render a list of posts. Let's go ahead in our source app tabs index, because that's where our feed is. And instead of this view, let's go ahead and render better a flat list imported from React Native here. And a flat list allows us to render lists of items. Our items are going to be initially the dummy posts imported from our dummy data file that we generated with AI. So it's an array of dummy posts, array of posts. And we can send here as data to our flat list the dummy post. And another important property of a flat list is the render item function. The render item tells flat list how do we want to render one single post from this array of posts. What we want to do is we can try rendering a text, and we can render item. Well, it should be like this, saying item. We're not going to say anything, but if I give here class name, text, white, we're going to see item, item, item. But in the render item, we are also going to receive the item itself, which we can destructure here, and the item which we currently want to render. And that item is going to be one post from this array. That means that we can render here a dynamic property called item dot, let's say, content. So now we see posts as their content. Perfect. Let's go ahead and extract this logic of rendering one post into a separate component inside source components, and let's create it as a new file called post list item.tsx and say, hey, I want to export default a function. So a component in React or React Native is a simple function. Let's call it post list item, and we want to return, let's say, this text. We need to make sure to import text from React Native. And this item, where do we get it from? Well, we're gonna get it from the properties here as item, or maybe in this case we can even rename it to post. And then we can say that this post is going to be of type post that we defined earlier. And instead of accessing it as item.content, we're gonna use post.content. Now that we defined this very simple component, we can import it, because we're exporting it here. We can go back to our home screen and say import post list item from components post list item. And in render item, instead of rendering this text, let's render a custom component called post list item that requires a post property that we can give a value of our current item that we are rendering. So in the end, we still have the same text here displayed, but the cool thing is that the logic of rendering one of these posts is extracted in a separate component. So we can come here and think and work on a separate component here, and everything is going to be applied to the rest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit not lazy but efficient, and I will generate the UI of this post list item with the help of AI. I'm going to open my a new terminal, a new chat here. My post list item was already added here. I will just ask it render the UI for the post list item for an app like Twitter or Threads. I chose Twitter because Twitter is more well known in my opinion than Threads. Threads is a little bit newer, so Twitter is quite similar. I will also tell it use NativeWind classes for styling, and I will use also follow the add type to also give this types file as context so that it knows what data do we have and what types those data are. Let's just do go. And if I do accept, what do we see here? We see the UI of a social media application such as Threads or Twitter or anything like that. That is everything, right? It tells us to even install some libraries like vector icons, but it's already installed, so we do not need to do anything. I'm going to look more, but yeah, that's basically everything. Perfect. So what I can do is I can commit this, but maybe I'm going to do some very small change. I'm very happy with what I have right now, to be honest. But I will look, maybe we can come a bit closer to the UI of Threads. And the one thing that jumps into the eye is the icons at the bottom. Here they are spread similar to how in Twitter they are. In this case, we are a little bit closer together. So what does that mean? Justify between probably is not needed. And maybe a gap 4 is needed to add some spacings between them. Yeah, I think that should be better. Post.replies.length. And I don't really like the icons. So I'm going to go into the vector icons. Or maybe I will do a follow-up question saying use more modern icons, something similar to Instagram or Threads app. And let's see if it's going to update to just the icons in this case. If you're using AI tools like this, make sure to commit often. If you're happy with something, commit, because you might work and reprompt, and then go into a hole that you don't really like the result, and then you kind of lost something that you already liked. So it's using Unicons. Yeah, I think these are much better already. So I can accept it. And that's it, right? Repeat. I don't really like repeat. Let's do what? Well, first of all, the first one there is likes. It's going to be heart outline. I'm going to put it first. Then we have comments. Yeah, that is good. Repeat, not the best, but fine as well. And send. Perfect. I see that also it just uses shows the username without the name of a user. So here at the top I can take the username and put it here instead of a name because the style is good. And I will just remove a username. As I see, that's what it's doing here. I'll also do here Command K to use an AI tool inline, specifically here. Display the time. Yeah, display the time. Let's do OK. And it's going to display the post.createdAt, but the format is not the best. For the format, I'm going to take over and I'm going to install npm install day.js. Day.js is a library that will help us render this kind of relative times, like 21 hours ago or 2 days ago or something like that. What we have to do is say import, or maybe we can use AI as well. Use day.js relative times for the post created at time. Let's see what it's going to do. It's going to import day.js relative time extend. That's exactly true. And here it's not going to change it, right? We're going to have to change it ourselves. We're going to use day.js dot and use the post created at, and then from now. And we see a year ago, if I go into dummy data and change the post to be created in 2025-05, we see that it's a day ago. If it's 02, we see that it's 5 hours ago. So it's much better like this. Yeah, I think I like everything so far. Is the line between them a bit more subtle? Maybe. That's the border B, gray 800. We can do for every color a slash and then provide like opacity. So /50 is going to be 50% opacity. Maybe 70. Yeah, I think this is a little bit less subtle or more subtle. Yeah, I think that's much better. And maybe not, but yeah, I think that's good. So yeah, let's put it side by side. I'm happy with how it looks right now. Yeah, perfect. Maybe the icon's not that grayish. Text gray 400 or 300. Yep. Let's do 300 to all of them. Text. There should be one more. No, okay. And here the color, I'm going to hover and copy this one and apply it to the color of the icons. Something like that. Is that good? I think it should be. Perfect. So that's our posts. I'm going to go ahead and say git add git commit post list item. And if you didn't get like the same results, I'm going to go ahead, copy this one and add it into the guide. I will put it right underneath here, say post list item.tsx, and here you're going to have the code if you want to see like the implementation that I've got here. Perfect. The next thing that I want to do is going to be the new thread or the new post page. Because having like the feed and the new post page, we can already get into the backend to create like the table for the posts, to connect them, to create, to read, to see, to fetch, and so on. So let's go ahead in the source. I'm going to think like how I want to do that. Well, one way to do that component is going to be inside the tabs, and let's call it new.tsx or create or new. And if I do export default new post, return this one. Make sure to import view from React Native and text. Class name text wide. We're gonna see a new icon here with a new post. That's cool, but I'm going to try to achieve the same interface as we see here. And the interface is we see that the new thread screen is displayed similar to a modal, right? So to do that, I'm going to extract this new screen to our app folder. Should I extract it to app folder? Actually, in order to prevent some moving around stuff, I'm going to say that, hey, I would like this root layout to be as minimal as possible and have only render slot, and everything else in our application should be in another folder. So that's why in our app directory, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to think ahead because later we're going to have authentication set up in our application. And when I have authentication, I like to group screens that should be only accessible by authenticated users. I like to group them together in a group called protected. This is just like how I like to do it, and I think it's a good way to structure it this way because it has like this name protected, and later on we're going to actually protect those screens. And what I'm going to do now, the tabs, I'm going to move inside protected. The new, I'm going to move it inside protected. So the protected has tabs and the new screen. In protected, I'm going to create a underscore layout.tsx, export default function, protected layout. And here I'm going to render this stack. So yeah, I didn't want to do it in the root layout. I wanted, because even later we're going to have to do these changes. So that's why I added protected now. And in the root, I have a stack here. Let's go ahead, and first I want to somehow open this new screen. To open the new screen, there are two ways. Like if we look at the UI, there are two ways. One way is from the bottom tab navigation when we press on a button. Another way is at the top of the feed, there is this component that looks like what's new, like an input. And when we press, it actually opens this one. So for now, I'm going to go into my tabs index where we have this flat list. And if you want to provide something at the top of a list, but want to keep scrolling it together with a list, I'm going to have here list header component. And let's do, I'm thinking like how, for now, I'm just going to do it as a link to /new, and then I'm going to think like how to style it properly. Let's close these parentheses like this. And I will do, let's do new post. Let's do class name font. I just need something to be visible. Blue 5 text. Padding 4, text center, text free Excel. Do I see it? Yeah, I see the new post at the top. That's all I needed. Later we can style it, but now I just need a link that will open this new page. So if I press new post, we're going to be navigated to the /new. That's the first step, but I want that /new to be open as a tab. That means that in the underscore layout here, I'm going to have to do some changes. Well, the first change that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go into the protected layout where we render the stack, and I'm going to open this stack, and I'm going to adjust some screen properties, and specifically for the screen with a name new. Let's do options here. And one option that we can do is we can say, hey, presentation, show it as a model. Now if I press new post, it shows as a model, similar to how the new thread works on iOS. The thing is that this model is only this presentation model is only working on iOS. I mean, on Android, it's looking a bit differently, but that's fine because that's like the native model way of doing it. You can also adjust the animation to fade from bottom, slide from bottom, for example, and this is going to be similar on Android as well. So now if I do a new, it's not the model, but it slides from the bottom. Very similar. I'm going to move back to presentation model. Maybe I'm going to leave both of them. Yeah. If I have time, I'm going to show you some how to change the theme. Let me note it down. Let me note it down. Change theme. Dark and light mode support. Okay, add it as a note, and if we have time, we're gonna do that. If not, we're going to do that in the extended tutorial. If you're interested in joining the extended tutorial, where we're going to continue and add a couple of more features after this public live stream, make sure to join the Notjust Club ahead of time by simply going to our YouTube page and joining the Notjust Club there. There is a button. Where is it? If you go to our channel page, there is a join button. If you press it, you're going to be able to join the Notjust Club. And for the Notjust Club, we're doing like extended tutorials. We're having an exclusive Discord community, some exclusive tutorials as well. So if you want, most probably today we're going to do it at the end, and then I'm going to give you more details about that. Now let's focus on the build itself. Okay. So the way like our component appears looks good. I'm not sure where is our tabs gone. Do you know? Where are the tabs? Index, tabs. Tabs, index. Layout, stack. Where are the tabs, guys? We lost the tabs for some reason. Well, in the layout here, we can say for some reason it doesn't take. I'm going to stop it. It seems like a weird behavior. because it looks at tabs index and doesn't see the layout. Okay, so after reload, it's still working. I defined the tabs here and set header shown false because we found that you'd see two headers, one for tabs and one for home. That's why the stack screen tabs, I'm hiding that one and only leaving the header of the actual tab itself. Perfect. Again, also, if we're gonna have time at the end, we're going to try to do this plus button in the bottom tabs that are still going to open this one. But for now, I'm going to put it in the notes, plus button in the bottom tabs. For now, new post is going to be good. Let's go ahead and define and work a little bit on the protected tabs, not tabs, protected new, where we're going to have a new post. We are going to try to have something like this. The name of the file in the layout, the title of this screen, or I'm going to do it even at the beginning, should be new thread. I'm going to start very simple with one input. In the new, I'm going to have a text input. What's on your mind? I'm going to import text input from React Native. Class name text white. Here it is. This view, I'm going to do padding 4. Let's do text LG to make the text larger. Here, I don't know, like the username, like that we're going to get later when we do the backend. And what else? At the bottom, the post button. Let's do that one. So at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to have a pressable that is going to have a text, and the text is going to say post. This pressable is a similar view component, but it has the on press events. We can say on post, but we're going to do that later. Let's just do here console log post, and we're going to try to console log the text that the user types here. First, I want to add some styles. This pressable, let's do a class name, is going to have the background. Let's do, I don't know what color is the button there, or maybe I do know. Do I know or I don't? Oh, it's white. So BG white. Nice. I'm going to do padding 4. I'm going to say self and putting it at the end of a screen, at the end of a container. I'm going to do rounded full, and that is going to make it a round button. What else? Post. I'm going to do P4, but padding on the x-axis 6, maybe P2 here, P3. Okay, I think that's good. For the text itself, I'm going to do black and font bold. I think that looks nice. The view itself, I'm going to say margin top auto to put it at the bottom of the screen. But the bottom of the parent, this view, if I do here bg red, we're going to see that this view is only as high as the content itself, but by saying flex1 is going to expand the whole screen. However, we don't want the view to go below the screen, below the notch. So we can import a safe area view from React Native safe area context and replace this view with a safe area view. If I do that and reload and open it up, we see that even though this bg red is below, but the button is at the top here. That's good. I will remove a bg red. Perfect. Another thing is that we need to get access to the value of the text input, like what the user is writing. For that, we're going to need a state variable that we can import from React. And with a useState hook, we can define state that is going to re-render the UI when it changes. So what we need to do with this text input will receive the value property is going to be the text state, and the onChange text is going to call the set text, meaning that it's going to update the text as the user is typing something. So the user is typing. We also have multi-line here. And if I do click on the post here in the console log, if I add the text, you're going to see that we have access to the information that the user wrote here. Perfect. Before we move on, I also want to show you that if we, on a physical device, when we write something here, it's actually going to open the keyboard. And opening the keyboard sometimes hides some of the buttons. In our case, it hides the post button. To prevent that, we can import a keyboard avoiding view from React Native. We also import the platform because the keyboard avoiding view works a bit differently on Android and iOS. And I'm going to wrap our component in a keyboard avoiding view. So inside safe area view, I'm going to put a keyboard avoiding view. I'm going to say class name flex1. Okay. And the behavior is going to depend on the platform. So if it's iOS, it's going to use, I think, padding. And on Android, it should be height. But I can double check that in the documentation of React Native keyboard avoiding view. I never forget that. I never remember that. So behavior on iOS, it's padding, on Android, it's height. Yes. So now if I'm going to open again the keyboard, we see that it actually didn't fix it because we need to also add some vertical offset. Not sure if it's only on iOS. But the vertical offset is like how much of a screen do we have from the top of the screen to the top of this keyboard avoiding view. And in this case, I'm not sure how much it is, but I can just guess, like if it's 60, no, 60 is not good. 100, it's also okay, but safe area view, if I'm going to do edges, only apply it to the bottom. Will it change anything here? No, it doesn't. I think we need even more because we have this, how's it called? There is a lot of space because we are using the modal, and even 120 is not enough. 140. Yeah, that's much better. So on iOS is 140. I'm going to also run it on Android just to test it to see how that looks there. With keyboard avoiding view, problem is if we close and open, if we tap on another field into the form and we got blank screen. Do you mean blank screen? The same problem as secure text entry. Have you tried it? Might be some issues with the new architecture, not really sure. And without reproducing, like, it's a bit hard to say. I need to update the Expo Go on my Android. Here is Android. Come on. Hope it's in dark mode. And yeah, everything works okay. I can do new post. It will come from the bottom, but it's not like a model like here. And I can write something here. And if I open the keyboard, where is the keyboard? Keyboard. Show keyboard. Alt K. Yeah, it works on Android as well with 0 vertical offset and height. So it works perfectly here as well. Perfect. The only thing that I don't like is that this text input has a placeholder. On iOS it's visible, on Android it's not. Maybe because we can adjust it with text color, placeholder text color, and now it's visible on both Android and iOS. Perfect. All right, so now we see that it's working on Android as well. I'm going to close that one, and I'm going to, for now, I'm going to do git add new post UI. Perfect. I think with that in mind, we are ready to get started on the backend to put things together on the backend as well. The goal is that next we're going to create the Supabase project. We're going to set up and implement authentication in our project. Maybe we can do the off screen now. The database, and then like to fetch posts, to do post, update profiles, and so on. Perfect. Maybe before we actually go into the backend, let's go ahead and work a little bit on the sign in, sign up screen. Or we're gonna do that together. Yeah, maybe we're gonna do that when we get on that step. The same problem with if we have more than 2 inputs. Let me try to reproduce. This is like a optional step to see if I can reproduce the same. For example, there is another text input. Let's say it doesn't have value on text, but it has secure text entry for the password, right? Let's say this is password. So you're saying that if I come here and say hello, I need to test it on a physical device. My phone is actually dying, but I'm going to try my best. And Not sure if my Expo Go is updated. I need to update Expo Go on my device. Expo Go. So yeah, now opening it on my device. Come on. Okay, so if I go here and say hello and change to another, yeah, I see what you mean. It's a seems like a very nasty problem. I don't think I'm going to be able to solve it now or look into it. I would look into and you said that is from the keyboard avoiding view. Maybe look at alternative libraries for keyboard avoiding view. Yeah, to avoid the blink while I tap on another field, I use keyboard aware scroll view. There are other libraries which could be a replacement for this one, but at the same time, maybe it's going to be fixed. I don't know, to be honest. But yeah, it's not very nice, right? It's a very small blink. The problem, I cannot reproduce it here, but on a device I can. Like when I move from one input. Oh, it's even here. From one input to another. Yeah, here it's not like that, no. But on a device it blinks, like it goes off the screen and then it comes back. Yeah. About secure for iOS, it not help. Not sure. Write me on Discord, and we can have a look, or maybe others have fixed it or found a solution. And you can join, guys. By the way, you can join our Discord. If you go to notjust.dev/discord, it's going to take you to our Discord channel. So make sure to join there. We can talk. Whew, all right. Yeah, no problem. What do we have here? Did I commit everything? No, I think I need to do what? Git, where are we? Git status, git diff. Is it, yeah, the password, so I can easily do git stash. Yeah, git status. Don't do git stash without knowing what it does. It basically deletes everything that hasn't been committed. So that's what I wanted to do, to get rid of our text input. All right. Are you thinking about doing a project that involves AI, something like a Gym Assistant or an AI assistant e-commerce? Actually, we have a lot of AI projects and AI tutorials on the channel. From top of my head, like, yeah, but basically we've done a lot of them. if you go to, make sure to go to the live when looking for things, because it's not under videos, it's under live. So AI stuff. Chat with video is AI RAG system with LangChain. This is vibe coding. This is more like using AI to build a game. AI agent, this is also LangGraph, building AI agents with LangGraph. Analyze YouTube channel. Here it's also AI powered YouTube analytics application. That's a project also with AI and chatting. I'm going to show you some nice ones. This one, Google Translate clone with React Native. It's using AI to translate text. AI chatbot for Expo docs. This is a RAG system that can understand and show you answer questions based on a documentation. What else? Yeah, there are others. If you scroll down, yeah, you can find. And you can also leave ideas. If you go to, do I have /ideas? I need to do the notjust.dev/ideas. How much did I miss? Around half of the tutorial, but so far we have built the user interface. We have set up like Expo Router with navigation. We've built like our feed with posts, the new post screen. And now it's time to, we are right at the middle where we finished the front end. And now we're going into the backend. And we're going to integrate Supabase. We're going to create the database. We're going to do authentication, the database, the querying, fetching, creating posts, and so on. How to send email with Node.js server using AWS SES. I don't think I can answer it in one line. Let me know, I can send you some resources. Maybe on Discord. I don't think I have a tutorial for that. How to make input for location. I need to create input for locations and use its coordinate for future calculations. If you need like autocomplete for locations, I would look into things like the Google autocomplete, because you need like real locations, and then yeah, like you need like an SDK or something like that. And the Google autocomplete will give you the location and its coordinates. All right, guys. So as I said, let's go ahead and start the backend part. And the first step is going to be to create a new Supabase project. Let's go on Supabase. Let's go ahead and click dashboard or sign up for a new project, for a new account. And the Supabase pricing, I think you get like 2 free projects per account. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. Let's call it Threads. I'm going to create a strong password. I'm going to copy it somewhere. Make sure to also copy it. If you lose it, like it's okay, you can reset it from the dashboard and go ahead and press create new project. In a second, you're going to have a new Supabase project that by default will give you a database, a Postgres database, which even though we do not have any tables, it's ready to create tables. We also get full authentication system that also works on top of Postgres. We get other possibilities as well that we might explore in today's tutorial. But first, what I want to do is in the SQL editor, in the templates here, there is a template called, or maybe quick starts. There is a quick start called user management starter. And the description explains, it sets up a public profiles table, which you can access with your API. Well, the thing is that by default, we're going to be able to create accounts with the authentication part of Supabase, and the account information is going to be also in the database. Even though it's in the database, so we can access it through table editor, but it's not in the public schema. It's in a auth schema. There are like users. So newly created users are going to be added here. One, that's good because we have access to the data such as users at the database layer. We can create connections between stuff, but in order to keep this one secure, we as developers cannot change the structure of this table. So if you need like some other fields like the bio and stuff like that, or the profile picture, what we need to do is we need to create a new table in the public schema, because this public schema is the one that the developer is managing, is designing and creating the way he wants. So we're going to create profiles on the public schema and link it to those users. And in order not to do that ourselves, in the SQL editor, under quick starts, the user management starter is doing exactly that for us. So you just open it, press run, and we're going to see success, no rows returned. I'm going to show you in a second what it happened, but I'm going to also walk you through here. So we see create table profiles. That basically means it created a new table in our public schema with these fields: ID, username, full name, avatar, website, and so on. It also, like if you scroll and read through these lines, it also created a handle new user function, which is going to insert a new row into the profiles table. But when does it do that? After insert on of users. Again, you don't have to master and know everything here. I'm just explaining you to give some ideas what's happening behind the scenes. So this starter said, create a trigger. After a user is added in the auth.users, call the execute the handle new user function, and the handle new user function is here. And what it does, it inserts a new row in profiles, meaning that it automatically creates a profile for every new signed up user. And it also sets up a storage with avatars and adds some policies. Anyway, if we execute it and we have success, no rows returned, that's good. We can go to table pro editor. Under the public schema, we should see the profiles here. And now we are ready to integrate this in our application and add the authentication part. And whenever a new user creates an account, it's going to create a profile as well as a user in the auth schema. We're going to see that in a second. For now, let's go ahead and maybe follow the authentication. So open this documentation in the docs guides of quick start. I'm going to check like what do I want from here. From the third line here, under we are in the getting started React Native. Under third line, we have an npx expo install Supabase JS. That's the only thing that I will install actually, or maybe the async storage as well. So these are the two things that I'm going to install. npx expo install Supabase JS and React Native async storage. I can paste it in the guide as well, so you have access to it. Bash. Now what we need to do is, in the source, I'm going to create a folder lib, not live, but lib. And inside here, I'm going to create a Supabase.ts. Here, we need to create and configure our Supabase client. For that, we're going to need some environment variables. Let's go ahead and first create a new file .env in the root folder. Here, we're going to add some environment variables such as it should be start with Expo public. I will explain a bit later, but the first thing is Supabase URL. Supabase, and the second one is Expo public Supabase unknown key. Things that environment variables that start with expo_public are going to be accessible in the client-side code. So never share secrets with Expo public. But if you need access in the client-side code, you can do that by prefixing your environment variables with Expo public. And the Supabase URL and unknown key, these are variables, secrets that you, not secrets, these are variables, but it's okay to share in the client side. Because URL, anyone can know the URL. Unknown key means anonymous key, and this is the public key that anyone can know. Everything else related to security, we're going to do it on account level, and we're going to see that a bit later. While I'm still here at the .env, I will add this .env file in my git ignore in order to not add it to my source control, like in my git. This way protecting like some secret keys if I will have any in my .env. Now back in my project, what I need to do is I need to go into the project settings. Under database, under data API, I'm going to see a URL here. This is the project URL that we need in the first variable, Supabase URL. Then in the API keys, we have this unknown, or also known as public key, which we can copy and put it here. Perfect. Now, back in this one, let's see if, Supabase client, okay. Yeah. So in this Supabase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const Supabase URL is going to be equal to process.env.public expo public Supabase URL. And the same thing I'm going to do with the unknown key. If they are missing, I'm going to say missing. Otherwise, I'm going to create a client, create a Supabase client. The create client function we can import from Supabase.js, and this is going to be the Supabase client that will allow us to interact with our backend. We need to add some configuration here as well, specifically for the auth, because on mobile phones, we need to provide like the specific storage that is going to use. In this case, the sync storage, and we can do import. Import async storage from React Native async storage. Auto refresh token true and persist session true. Detect session in URL can be false. Perfect. Now this is our Supabase client, and we can use it to interact with our Supabase, to authenticate users, to query data, to insert data, and so on. I'm going to probably do git status, git add, git commit -m, setup Supabase client. Now we need to go ahead and create the login screen that is going to be used to create an account and to sign in. In our app folder, I'm going to keep the login screens outside the protected folder, inside a folder called auth. Here, I can create the login.tsx screen, and I can use maybe AI to say, hey, create a new chat, render a login screen with email and password, a login button, don't have an account, create one link, use NativeWind to style it. Let's see what is going to happen here. Okay, we have welcome back, the text input and so on. Let's go ahead and maybe where inside tabs index, I'm going to add a new link here at the top. For a second, I'm going to add a new link similar to this one that will go to /login. So if I press login, I should come here. Perfect. Let's say use dark mode. Come on, use dark mode. Think that's good enough. Like, I don't strive for perfection, I strive for good enough. And there is one style that I think it's available in Tailwind, but it's not available in NativeWind, and this is the space Y. For some reason it's not working, and the space Y can be replaced simply by gap 4. So this is one thing that AI likes to use, but it's not working in my case, and by replacing it with gap, it's working, and I will search for other instances as well. Perfect. Let's do add state to store the email and the password in state. Email password is loading, handle login, I don't know, is doing something, set is loading true, implement the actual login logic here. Okay, that's good enough. I'm going to probably leave it like this. Let's do accept. Don't have an account, create one. And I will do kind of the same for, I'm going to duplicate this login screen for another one, sign up screen. I'm going to rename it sign up screen. From the login, where we have that link to register, let's change it to sign up. So if I go to login and then click create one, route not found, because I need to reload probably. So if I go to login, then do create one, I know what's happening, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to change here, create an account. Yeah, I see it working. And I'm going to change already the text at the bottom. Already have an account, sign in, and I'm going to redirect to login page. Sorry that I'm using like sign in and login and sign up, but yeah. So if I go login, I can go there, I can go back. I can also, you know what, add an layout file, because at the moment you don't even see like how we navigate from one screen to another. It's just changing the text here. But by adding a layout and doing export default function of layout and adding a stack screen, we're going to have like this animations. So here I can go here and I can go back. As you can see, yeah, it's much better. Maybe I can do header shown false for both of them. Maybe only for the login. For the sign up, I don't think we need, because I can come back. Maybe I will change the title to sign up. At the top, sign up. Header back, display mode. If I do minimal, it's only going to show a back button without the title of the previous page. Okay, perfect. I like how it looks right now. I don't like the background. Neutral instead of gray will probably look better. Yeah, like neutral color. I'm building now an application to launch a new application. And I fell in love with this neutral color, to be honest. But why am I doing this? Can you tell me? Because this is not super important, but I'm still spending a lot of time. Because this gray has like a tint of bluish, which I don't really like. So if I go here, yeah, perfect. Now I really love it. And maybe the buttons. Oh my God, how could I forget? Background, white. Let's do white. And text, black. Sign up, same here. White. And the text is going to be black. Login. For a sign up page, the text should be sign up. And for login, I think the text should be sign in. Perfect. If I go here, create an account, go back. Perfect, love it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now that the UI is good, I'm going to do git add, git commit of UI, login and sign up screens. And the next step is going to be to actually implement the authentication, the sign up logic. For that, I'm going to go back into this guide from Supabase on how to do that. And well, before I move forward, like in the leave Supabase, it tells us to add like this event listener to auto refresh and stop refresh token. This is a minimal stuff that is going to enable auto refreshing the token when we open the application, when the application comes back to being active. So it's a very good thing to have. Let's add it now before we forget about it. I'm going to go in source lib Supabase and add it here as upstate, that is from React Native. When the status changes to active, we start auto refreshing the token. Otherwise, we stop the auto refreshing. Perfect. Moving on, we have a login component which we already implemented, but what we are interested in is in this supabase.auth sign in with password. So if I take this one from here, maybe I will take the whole sign in with email. Let's start with sign up with email. So I'm gonna copy sign up with email. I'm gonna move it to this up of sign up here. Like this. gonna have to somehow merge together the two of them because we're kind of doing the same thing. Well, first of all, I'm going to I think the structure of this handle login, which should be handle sign up, is much better. We can say there is no email or password. Let's do alert.alert. Please enter an email and password. Then we set is loading, and everything between these two lines are going to be copied, pasted, and put here where we see the to-do implement the logic. And this sign up with email is going to go away. The Supabase should be imported from our lib. So import Supabase from our lib Supabase. And what we do here is we going to try to put it in the same line. Maybe it's going to fit, maybe not. No, it doesn't want to fit. So what we are doing is we're calling Supabase auth.signup. We're sending the email and password, which can actually be simplified because we have the same key and value. Maybe even this one can be simplified a little bit. It's taking too much space. And when it's taking too much space, it feels complicated, but it's actually quite simple. So we are calling sign up with the email and password that the user provided. If we get back an error, we're going to display that error. If there is no session, we're going to say, please check your inbox for verification. And otherwise, we're going to send login attempt with the email. I don't need this one. That's it. What I'm going to do first is, for development purposes, I'm going to disable the necessity of confirming our email. I'm going to go into the authentication under sign up. I'm going to go enter auth providers under email. I'm going to say confirm email. I'm going to disable this. This is only for development purposes because we would need to create a new screen to input the confirmation code. I don't have a time to do that. So that's why I'm going to delete that one so I can sign up and already use my account without having to confirm my email. Let's go ahead and test if this one is working. Well, first handle sign up input should be put in the touchable opacity here. Unable to resolve WebSockets. What WebSockets? Let's try to stop and open again. Reload. No apps connected. Wait a second. What's going on here? Node modules. I'm wondering what's going on here. And I'm thinking if I missed something, what? Maybe I will comment out this one because that's what we added. What else did we add? In the sign up, I imported the Supabase and the alert. I can even comment out everything in the sign up. Oh, chill. and reload. Of sign up. Yeah, in the layout as well, I can comment out. Okay, now it works. In the Supabase, if I uncomment this upstate, well, I mean, the thing is that we never import this Supabase file, so that's why. If we import it, it's going to be executed, and it's going to stop working. Where is my YouTube? I lost it. Let's debug and see why the problem. Supabase Expo. I'll go into the guide of Supabase Expo and double check the libraries. Supabase this1. Okay. Vasync storage. We have it. And that's it. Then with async storage is doing create client from here. I can try this again like this, I don't know. Maybe it's the new Expo SDK, you know? Supabase. Supabase Expo WebSockets error. Yeah, Supabase Expo not working with SDK 53. The package, this is a very new, 3 days ago. So I'm pretty sure I'm having the same error. Let's see how to debug it. And if it's possible, attempted to import the node standard library. Okay. So I have built successfully with the URL polyfill doesn't work. This is the same issue as this one. The teams at Expo and Supabase have been discussing this and a fix is in progress. You can disable the package exports configuration metro as described here. Can't use unstable enable package exports metro options. All right, so I think as Brent explained here, they are aware of this, and most probably when you are watching this tutorial, you won't have this problem. But if you're following this live, you might have the same issues, and if you're using Expo SDK 53. So as a workaround, while it's properly fixed, we're going to do add this config resolver as enable package exports false. Let's go ahead in metro config, and under config do this. Now I'm going to stop the server, start it with -- clear, and reload the application. And now everything seems to work. Thank you very much, Brent. It's working. And we are continuing our journey because in the Supabase, I just don't want to forget to add back this upstate because it was fine. It was not, the problem was not here. Now I can go to create a new account. I can write my email. I can do sign up. And what do we see back? Well, probably nothing, but if I go into my authentication users, we're gonna see a new user created with this email. And if we go into the table editor under schema public profiles, we see that a new profile has been created and linked with my user, where we can have things like username, full name, avatar, website, bio, and anything that we can, as developers, design our data with. Perfect. That means that now I can go back to the login. What's up with this layout? It should be like this. Now we can go back to the login and do the same thing there. Handle login. I will do an alert here. Alert is something from React Native. I'll do something here as well. And here in the try, what we're going to do is we're going to call Supabase sign in with password. We're gonna give email and password. And if there is an error, we're going to show it. The Supabase should be imported from the lib. So we're gonna give email and password, and because we have the same name, email and password, we can skip it like this. And if there is an error, we're gonna show it to the screen. Otherwise, it's going to automatically sign in. For example, if I go ahead and say vadim at not, and I will do an error, we're going to see invalid login credentials. But if I'm going to provide the right one, hopefully I didn't forget it. Yeah, we don't see any error. Cool, that's awesome. But that's not it, because we want to automatically redirect to the home screen. Well, that is going to happen automatically as part of the Expo Router configuration. And what we want to do next is to make sure that authenticated users are automatically redirected to the home screen, and unauthenticated users are automatically redirected to the sign-in screen, and they do not have access to the other screens. To do that, we're going to use a combination of layouts from Expo Router and the combination of context provider that is going to give us access to the user. So let's go ahead and create a new folder called providers. And here let's call off provider.tsx. We need this in order to simplify the way we get access to the current user in the current session, because we don't want to call Supabase every time we need to know information about the user. We want to have it in a central place, so this serves as a global state management, like a very small part related to information about the authentication, the user, the session, if he's authenticated or not. For that, we're going to need a context. Let's maybe try to see here if we can get AI to do what I want. So create the auth provider. It needs the auth context and auth context type that will export the user and the boolean is authenticated. User from, okay. Auth provider component that will store the user and the session from Supabase and render the auth context provider, and inside the children props implement the logic of Supabase to listen to session changes and automatically set it in state. And third, a use of hook to get access to the context. So let's see what it's going to do. But this is usually like the three things that I have in a context provider. I have a context with its type. I have a component that renders that context and keeps the logic, like the state that it needs. And I have a helper hook. Now, I'm not going to stop to explain too much about context. If you want to learn more about that, then check out on our website the React Native Mastery. This is the course that will teach you everything about React Native and Expo, and there I have a time to go in very depth with all the topics that you need to know about React Native Mastery. And React Context is one of those topics. It's actually it's in the second project, I think. This course is split in 7 different projects. So everything that I'm teaching in a fun way, in a project-based learning, something that you are used to, but I have time to go more in depth. We are editing the lessons, so you get like the most amount of knowledge per minute as possible by building 7 amazing projects. So yeah, check it out. The previous weeks I also worked on adding workshops, which are exercises that you will have to do yourself to practice everything that you learn new. So what's going on here with this one? Why is it so search? It's taking a bit of time. Let's do use Supabase client from lib/Supabase. Maybe that's something that I didn't know. Okay, now it's doing it better. Let's check what it's generating. So the auth context is a user or null, but user is coming from Supabase. Yeah, that's good. Is authenticated. Okay, that's good. use of, it's doing the context like that. And this one export const children. Okay, user and is authenticated. I don't think is authenticated should be a state. It can be understood from the user, but okay. Get session in the use effect that has an empty dependency list. Yeah, that's good to get the initial session and set it there. If session set, okay. I would actually store this session there itself, but anyway, listen for off changes. On off status change is session okay, if not okay. Return subscription and subscribe. Yeah, I think this should be good. And it also shows us that in our this one maybe I'm going to do myself. I'm going to go into the application layout, and that's where I want to render my auth provider, because I need to access it in all our screens. And global providers at the root layout. Remember that. Now that I have that, look what I can do. Now we are not logged in, or maybe we are. I have to implement the guarding with Expo Router. I have to protect the protected folder. And to do that, I'm going to go into the layout of the protected folder. And what I can do is I can check. First of all, I can get the is authenticated property from use of hook, the one that we just created in the auth provider. And I will say, if the user is not authenticated, redirect him to the /login screen. That means that if the user is not authenticated, he's not even gonna get here. And I'm going to do the same thing in the auth layout, but this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to take const is authenticated from the use of, and I'm going to check if he's authenticated. Only then I'm going to redirect him to protected, meaning that if you're already authenticated, you should not be in the auth screen, such login, sign up, or forget password. Now if I reload, I'm going to be automatically redirected here. Even if I will try to go to the login screen, I'm not going to be able to, because I will right away be redirected back to the protected. Now, instead of this login screen, maybe we can do a sign out button. Let's do the sign out button maybe in the profile screen. So in the protected tabs profile, let's add here a view. I will add a text sign out. Let's import the view. Let's do text class name, something like that. If I go here, text white, I have sign out button. And when I press on this button, what I want to happen is I want to actually sign out the user. To do that, I will use the same use of provider. No, not the use of provider. I'm going to use the Supabase client. And using supabase.auth.sign out, I'll sign out from the Supabase, which will update in the providers, because it's listening to these state changes, and it's updated the state. It's going to set the user to null and is authenticated to false. Then the protected layout is going to re-render, and it's going to see that we are already not authenticated, and it's going to redirect us to the login screen. Now, if I reload the application, there is no way as an unauthenticated user to get to the home page, because as you can see right away, we are on the login screen. Here, I can go ahead and say, let's log in. And I'm automatically redirected here. if I reload, for some reason, yeah, like everything is working fine right now. But if I want to show you like how to avoid some stuff, because right here, I don't see this problem because I think Expo Go is doing this animation. But in a lot of cases, when we have this approach, we have a very small flicker. When we open the application, it goes to the login screen and then it goes back to the home page. That's because our auth provider is not yet sure if a user is authenticated or not. For that, we can add here is loading state. We can do in the use effect, after we get the initial data, we can set is loading to false. That's the only thing that we need to do. And the easiest way is to say here, if is loading, just return an activity indicator. Activity indicator is a spinner. I don't need any color for it. I'll just do it like this. This way, before we even see any screen, we already have fetch information about the user, so we're going to be sure if he's authenticated or not. And we're going to avoid that flicker, replace it with like an activity indicator that is going to go away very, very fast. Perfect. That's our authentication. And what I'm going to do is, I think the login button here should be removed from protected tabs index, this login removed, because the redirecting to the login screen happens automatically, and that's what you want to have. You don't want to manually redirect people around and then forget to do that in one case, and then you open them up your application for unexpected visitors. Now, because on the protected layout, we say if you're not authenticated, you're not gonna even get here. That is going to protect these screens, and nobody is going to get here unless they're authenticated. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m authentication logic with Supabase and Expo Router. I will do git push origin main. And yeah, perfect. How are you doing, guys? Ahmed, thank you very much. I've been watching this channel for a year, and I just have to say thank you, Vadim, for the amazing tutorials. Honestly, you're the only YouTube channel I found that delivers this level of quality. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Oh, it's so nice to hear these messages. So with authentication done, I think we are ready to go to the next step, to the database. The first one is going to be to create our posts table. For that, you can, maybe I will go to even to show another option, what you can do. I will actually go to, you can create Supabase table visually by going to table editor and doing new table, and here posts. Think that's what we should do. I was thinking about generating an SQL, but I think it's going to be easier if I just come here and say posts and implement it together with you. Post ID. The ID, I want it to be a UUID, a universal ID. So I'm going to select the type UID, and it's going to generate a random UID when we create a new post. It's going to have created at. It's going to have, like, we need to look at the source types here for the post to see. It has created that. It will have content. So let's do content. It's the things that a person writes of type text. And I think is nullable. Let's leave it as nullable because in future maybe there will be posts only with images without any content. It will have a user ID saying what user did post this, did create this post. For the user ID, let's press on this link icon because we want to link the user ID with a profile where the user ID is going to equal to profile ID. And when a profile is updated, what do we want to do? Let's update also this user ID here. And when the profile is being removed, do we want to delete the posts of that user? I think it's going to be good to do that. So let's do cascade. Cascade means when you delete the parent item, delete the child items as well. And now this user ID created a foreign key that connects the user ID to our profiles. That's good. The next step is what? Parent ID. And parent ID is going to be a link towards public posts, but I don't see it here. So maybe we first have to create it and then add it later. But other than that, that's it, right? Content user ID. Yeah, let's do save for now. So we have a table posts with these columns. If I go ahead and do edit table, I want to add one more column, parent ID, that will link with the same table. Can I do that? Yes. Now we see that we can link to the same table where the parent ID will point to the ID of another post. If the parent item is being deleted, I don't think we need to delete replies. I don't know. Let's do, no, when it's updated, we can update this one here. But when it's deleted, I can do what? Set to null. And in that case, replies are going to become parent posts. It's okay. And let's save. Perfect. Everything else like the user, the parent, and replies, these are going to be in a way fields that we will get by querying the data correctly. Because having the user ID, we can get the user information. Having the parent ID, we can get the parent post. And also having a parent ID, we can get replies for a post. We're going to see that in a second. The first step is to insert a new item here. We do that from the new post screen when we write something. Hello. If I post, I want to insert a new item in this. In that table. Let's go ahead and see how we can do that. First, I'm going to open the application protected new. And here we have a text. What we need is const on submit is going to equal to do something. If there is no text, let's return. Otherwise, I'm going to call Supabase dot from targets a table. Let me import Supabase first. Import Supabase. So from posts, I want to insert the following values. Content is going to be equal to text. What other fields do we have? The ID is going to be auto-generated, created at auto-generated, content we specify, the user ID and the parent ID. Well, parent ID is null, so it's okay, but the user ID is something important. We need the user ID, and we can take it by getting access to the user from our useOf helper. UseOf is our context provider that has information about the user. Oh, Supabase was already imported. And just like that, we have access here to the user. We can also test here, like if there is no user, also don't do anything. And all the Supabase functions will return two things: data and error. The error, if something happens, is going to be returned here, and the data if it was inserted correctly. So if I go ahead and say hello and do post, I don't know what's happening, but it's not calling on submit. I can go in this pressable with a post and call the on submit. And if I press it once again, we see an error. Let's see the problem. New row violates row level security policy for table. Why does that happen? Well, when we created the post, we left this enable row level security, RLS. This is recommended, and this is the way we protect data in our tables. The problem is that if we enable it, by default, nobody is going to be allowed to do anything. That's fine because we have to add policies to allow different users to do different actions, and this way protect our data. Let's go ahead and create a policy to allow authenticated users to create posts. To do that, come to table editor, go to the table that you want to edit posts, and here there is a button add RLS policy. Let's press create policy here, and there are some templates. I think the insert is the one that we are looking for, because it says insert, enable insert for authenticated users only. A policy has a name, but it's up to you to create. It's created on a table, in this case is on a public post. It's permissive, meaning it allows things, and it allows the insert command targeting the roles authenticated. And then here it says true, meaning that if you're authenticated and there is no more rules, like that's the only thing. Insert to authenticated is permissive, is allowed. Let's save this policy. And now if I go back and click again this post button, something should happen. I don't know what, but if I go into our table editor under the post and do refresh, I don't see it. Let's try it again. New post, hello, post, and it deleted the item, and I think that means that it actually inserted it. Yeah, it inserted an item. If I open it up, it has an auto-generated ID, it has a correct created at time, the content is hello, the user ID is this one, and if I select it, we're going to see that it's exactly the same as this user ID here, and it's exactly the same as the actual user ID in our system. That's because we are linking together like profile and user and the post user ID as well. Perfect. So just like that, we were able to create our first post. I'm not going to continue like doing anything more like going back and so on, because it's going to change a little bit like how we do that when we introduce TanStack query. For now, that's what we needed to know. Like to insert, we use a Supabase client. Using the from, we specify what table we are working with, post table, and we are inserting a new item with these fields. Perfect. Before we Oh, thank you very much, Alex Klinky. Thank you for helping me on Discord a while back. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. You're Alex from Romania, right? I remember you. We had a call about your project, about joining the incubator, if I remember correctly. Perfect. Thank you very much. So what I wanted to do next is the same way as we are creating something on Supabase, I want to show you how we can fetch data from Supabase. And in a second, we're going to improve it a little bit. We want to fetch data in the tabs index where we have this flat list of dummy posts. Well, what I want to do is I want to store these posts in a state. And when we mount this component, I will use a useEffect hook. I'm going to run a function. I want to fetch the post from Supabase. To do that, let's define a function fetch posts, an asynchronous function, and let's call it right away. In the function, let's get data and error by calling supabase.from. Make sure to import Supabase. Supabase.from posts, I want to select all the columns. Now what I want to do is, if there is an error, maybe alert, I don't know, or console error, otherwise set the post in state using the data that we received. Maybe also let's do a console, or maybe here, console log posts. And I also like to do stringify, JSON stringify posts to show them very easy to read. Now this post we're going to render in a flat list, and we no longer need the dummy posts. If I reload, we're going to see an empty array. You might think something is not working, and I'll tell you, no, it's the same row level security policy. But you say like, yeah, but previous time we got an error, here we do not get any errors. Well, we get error when we try to do something such as insert, update, delete. When we fetch, when we query, Supabase is not going to give us an error, it's simply going to give us only the items that we have access to. And currently, if we look at the policies to the, not profiles, but table editor posts of policy, we only have a policy to insert. And as I said before, by default, everything is denied, is not permitted. So let's go ahead and create a new policy to enable read access for all users. Well, I would actually do read access for all authenticated users. I still think that I want only authenticated users to select and to see data, to query data from our posts table. And because I changed the target role here, I'll also change the name to reflect this change to authenticated users only. So once again, a public posts table, permissive behavior, select to authenticated, and through here. Let's do save policy. And now if I go back here and reload, we're going to see that we have a new item. An item with the first post that we have in the database. Perfect. Let's see why our project is failing. Well, that's because our post list item expects a little bit a different type. Let's see what's the problem there. Well, we're trying to access post.user.image, but there is no post.user here. We only have user ID. Well, you might think that, okay, we can fetch the user based on this user ID from the profiles and so on. That's true, we can do that, but what we can also do is, instead of sending a second request for every single post, we can actually do that from one single query. When we are fetching the post from Supabase, here in select we say what fields do we want every post to have, and we say give me all the fields from the post table. But if you do a comma here and also say, hey, give me also the fields, all the fields from the users table that is linked to this post, and we have a user table linked to a post by user ID. So if I do that, maybe not users, actually it should be profiles, because it's linked to profiles. What we see is that, hey, our post now has a little bit more data. It has a profile with ID, website, avatar URL, and so on. Perfect, but my post list item expects post.user, not post.profile. Well, we can either change the post list item, or we can rename this field here. Instead of profiles, I'll do before it, I will choose the name user, and then I'll put the semicolons. So this way I will rename in what property it's writing the profiles information. And I see here user already. So user here, if I go in post list item, instead of image URL, I think it should be avatar URL. This is something that I'm not gonna change, I'm going to change here. What else? Post.user username, okay. Post.content, okay. Created at, I think it should be with created underscore at. Post.replies. Well, let's do that a bit later. So I'm just going to do 0 for now. And that's it. All right, just like that, look, we have a post displayed here. Yeah, it has some missing things, but if I manually go into my in the table editor profiles, and for this profile I'm gonna set a username like Vadim, and also an avatar URL that I might take from dummy data here, like this one maybe. And I will put here in the avatar URL. You're going to see that, what did I do? Oh, Alex, I told you about TanStack. That's exactly what we're gonna do in a second. But look, we have our post with the avatar, with the username, everything coming from the database right now. And if I go ahead and create a new post, how are you doing? And come back and do a reload. Okay, a bit buggy. I don't know what's happening. We have two posts there, both of them coming from our database. Profile is 1, but posts are 2. Perfect. Let's go ahead, and this is very simple interactions with our database. What we learned in this step is we learned about row level security and how they are important to protect our data. And the advice is always enable them if you have account-based system where users have accounts. It's okay to not have RLS only if data is public, like anyone can read anything. But even then, it's quite important to protect it because you don't want other people to delete data or update it. Then with RLS, all operations are denied by default, so we can add new policies to allow users to do something. We saw how we allowed authenticated users to create posts, and we used the Supabase client to insert a post in our database. And then we added a new policy to allow authenticated users to fetch posts, and we did that in our application in the feed to get a list of posts. Now let's go ahead and do git status, git add, git commit. This one is the Supabase insert and fetch. And we also learn how to fetch connected data, such as the user of a post or things like that. I will also add here in my notes, if we manage to do the TypeScript setup. But before we move on, the next step is I want to show you a better way of fetching data. Because right now, if I look into the application protected tabs index, this stuff is what I have to do every time. It's a lot of boilerplate to fetch some data, because we have to define a state. Then we have to use a use effect. In the use effect, we have to define an async function. We have to remember to call it, because use effects cannot do native async functions. And then we have to do the error and stuff like that. If you want to add error messages and loading states, that's adding multiple states and so on. The solution for this is to use TanStack query. And with TanStack query, we can interact and fetch and mutate the remote data really easily with a very nice API. And the benefit is that the data is also going to be cached locally. So if you fetch the same data in multiple screens, you can configure it in a way that your backend is not going to be reached multiple times in a short period of time, but is going to reuse the cached data locally. Let's go ahead and open TanStack query here. And let's go to the docs and to the installation. I'm going to select React is okay. Let's start by installing TanStack React query in our application. And the next step is I'm gonna go into the quick start. Yeah, I'm not gonna confuse you with the documentation. I'm gonna show you. In the app layout, in the root layout, where we have all the global layouts, I'm going to import two things, the query client and the query client provider from TanStack query. First, I'm going to create a query client using new query client class. Then, with a query client provider, somewhere here, I'm going to provide this client to the rest of my application. So make sure that the slot is inside this query client provider. Now, back in my protected index here, I'm going to rewrite this with the help of a use query hook from TanStack query. To do that, I'm going to add some space here. We're going to say, hey, we're going to get back something by calling use query hook from TanStack query. It has an object with options, and it has two important options. The first one is query key. And for now, let's just say that this query key is going to be an array with a string posts. And it has a query fn, or a query function. The query function is going to be executed to get our asynchronous data. So what you have in this query function, it's really up to you. And that's the beauty of TanStack query, because you can fetch Supabase, you can fetch a REST API, you can fetch a GraphQL API. It really doesn't matter how and where you fetch it from. The important thing is that Once the result from query function is received, so it's returned from here, the TanStack query is taking over and caching these results properly. So what we need in the query function is something like a fetch post here. I'm going to extract this fetch post, maybe outside, even here. I don't have a set here, but I'm going to simply do return data. And if there is an error, instead of console logging, I'm going to do throw error. Or Supabase actually has throw on error, which I think is going to be better. Now the query function is going to simply be fetch posts. Back from the use query, we get data, which we can rename into posts. And we get is loading, and we get error, and a lot more things. I'm going to comment out this state because we no longer need it. I'm going to comment out this use effect. And I'm going to use, like, if it's loading, let's return an activity indicator. If it's error, let's return a text displaying the error dot message. And this activity indicator and the text should be imported from React Native. And that's it. That's our TanStack query. And if I reload, I see again this information. At this moment, it might not, if TanStack query is new for you, you might not see the full value of it, but as we move along, as we add new features, and as we encounter new common things that we always need when we are working with remote data, such as invalidating data, refetching, and things like that, mutating, it's going to make a lot more sense. And this use effect, like it's just bad way of doing it. Like, it's okay, but it's not supposed to do that. Perfect. Now everything is working. And here even data can be left as posts, so you can have everything in one line. Perfect. What's important is in this query function, the fetch post, is to have this throw an error, because everything that is thrown here, such as throw new error, my new error, everything that is thrown here is going to be accessed through the error in the use query. So if I reload, I'm going to see that it's loading. It's actually behind the scenes trying it multiple times because it might be a network issue. So by default, it's going to try it like, I don't know, 3 or 5 times to redo the same query. And if it doesn't still happen, it's going to return and show the error. So that's already something that behind the scenes is happening, like retrying without you even doing anything. And I see my error here. If the problem was that by default, I'm going to remove this one. By default, Supabase will return an error instead of throwing it. And if I'm not mistaken, with this throw an error, it's actually going to throw it properly. Whew, perfect. Now, yeah, I think we are good here. Git add, git commit -m. Set up TanStack query and implement the first use query. In the next step, we are going to do a mutation, because a query is something that we fetch. A mutation is something that we update. Moving on, as I said, we saw how we can use the hook use query from TanStack query to fetch data. But how do we use a use mutation hook to mutate data? Sorry. For example, in the new post screen, we have what we want to do is we want to use this mutation to send the Supabase insert request. We're going to import the use mutation from TanStack query. We're going to define use mutation, and it needs some parameters as well. It doesn't require a mutation key, that's optional for some specific cases, but it needs a mutation function. And the mutation function can be another function that we can say create post, which is going to be similar to what we did here. We send the content, the user ID. Let's also send user ID as string, and we can also say dot throw on error, and then return data. Dot select. I think select is also important to get back like what was inserted, but I'm not sure if we're gonna use it. Now in the mutation function, if I do, hey, please call the create post with this information, user ID here, user can be null, but we know that if we're here, the user is not going to be null. I don't know. I can add here a question mark. But see, it doesn't want. It's okay. I'm going to add a question mark here saying that, hey, I know that the user here is defined. Now, the onSubmit, this part, I'm going to comment it out. The use mutation hook is going to return us, first of all, a very important function called mutate. And mutate is going to be the function that we call to execute the mutation function. So it's not going to automatically be executed, such as the use query, but it's going to be executed when we call mutate. Let's do mutate when we do press function that calls mutate. Now, if I'm going to go to new post and say first using TanStack, if I do post, probably nothing is happening, but here I will see that it was added. Now let's look at other things that that would be important. For example, I can get here is pending, something similar to is loading, and I can say, hey, I want to disable this button. Disable if we are currently pending. I want to change the background color and to do dynamic strings. I will have to change this one to a template string like this, and I will say, hey, I have here a dynamic string saying if it's pending, opacity 50. Yeah, I think that's good. Or with background, I can do background white, and here background white /50. That's the same way. Now if I do hola, and do post, we're going to see that for a split of a second it was white because the mutation was pending. And another thing that we can do here is we can add, besides the mutation function, other functions such as on success. And these are callback functions that will be executed and we will receive data, things that this create post returned, so this data. Some cases it's important, in this case it's not, because what we want to do after success is reset the text in the field and also do router dot back, or basically router go back. This router imported from Expo Router. And the same thing we can do with one error. We can console, or we can do alert error, something like that. This error can be, we can get it in code, like with the callback function on error, but we can also get it here in the error so that we can go ahead and render it below the text input. I don't know, for example, here, if error, display the message. For example, if I would go ahead and say content equal true for some reason, if I'm going to try to post this, it's still going to work. It's a bit weird. It's yeah, it's changing. Maybe if I will say user ID, because user ID was important, was required. Let me check in the edit table and make sure that the user ID in the settings, I will deselect is nullable, making it a required field. So if I do save, and then come back and specifically crash this one by saying null, if I'm going to go new post and do something post, we're going to see both an alert that is coming from this one on error. In this case, you can, I don't know, use a crash analytics tool like Sentry to report the error, but we get it here as error variable that we can render on the screen here. And it has the information about the error here, so I'm sure the thrown error is working now. Perfect. What I want to do, maybe this alert then is not needed if we're displaying it on the screen. What I wanted to do, yeah, the submit function, we don't no longer need it. Oh, to get back this user ID to normal. And if I do normal, yeah, it goes back. Perfect. So that's the mutation. We learn how to run a mutation function. We learn by using the use mutation function and mutate. We learn about the is pending that can be used to show the loading state of a mutation. We learned about the callback function as on success, on error. There is also on settled. And we also get information like error, data here as well, and things like that. Perfect. Another thing next thing I want to show you when it comes to TanStack query is how to invalidate queries, because we are redirected back to the home feed, but the new posts are not displayed here. If I will reload the application, yeah, these posts are going to appear, but they do not appear instantly. Maybe I will delete a couple of them. And in order to make sure that the posts appear on the home feed after running a mutation, we as developer need to think, well, running a mutation usually means changing some data, updating, deleting, inserting, and so on. And we should be aware like what queries this might affect. Well, a mutation of creating a post will definitely affect the query of fetching the posts. So we know that this query for fetching the post has a query key posts. What we want to do is we want to tell, hey, TanStack query, go ahead and invalidate the queries with the key posts after you successfully insert a new one here. To do that, in the new where we have a mutation, we need to get access to the query client using the hook useQuery client imported from React Query. Now, with query client, in the onSuccess, we can say query client invalidate queries where the query key starts with this post array. Now, if I'm gonna go here to the new post and say new post, post it, when I come back, it's already here in the list because it invalidated, and invalidating a query means that it's going to rerun again the query function, fetch posts. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And because this concept is very powerful and helps you keep your UI up to date when you're running some mutations. And with that being said, we are done with mutation as well. TanStack use the use mutation hook. Let me see if I can update the new post here at the top. We are approaching, like we have around 20 more minutes. We are approaching the end of today's tutorial. Now what's going through my mind is, would you like to see the continuation of this project, or would you like to see other projects built? Because there are some stuff that maybe we can touch as well, such as likes, replies, images, storage, sharing images, maybe notifications, but that's a bit more advanced. The profile editing. So there are quite a lot of things, but I'm thinking like if this is enough, or would you like a new project that we can do next week? Anyway, before we finish, I want to polish some of the stuff that we still managed to do. For example, the new post here. I'm thinking like maybe in the components. Like if we look here in the threads, let me try to do the plus here at the bottom. The plus there at the bottom. How did I do that? In the tabs, I might create a tab like plus.tsx that does export the full plus screen, and it's the only thing that it does return redirect href new. So I'm adding a tab that simply redirects to the new. So if I go to this tab, it redirects here, but it redirects weirdly for some reason. What I mean, it's not like If I do new post here, it's like a model. If I do it from here, it's a bit weird. But why? Maybe in the layout where we have new, I'm not gonna have this animation slide from bottom because in this layout, I will add plus if I do plus, that's weird. But I think I understand why. Expo Router, you can hijack press events, prevent default, and make router to new route. Yeah, like I remember I was doing this once, but now it's kind of like I'm a bit lost. I know that if we do href null here, it's not going to appear in the bottom, but that's not what I want. Do you have any resources? Expo Router on tab press in layout file. Yeah, with null, no, that's not what I need. Event listener, tab press, screen listener. Should I do it here as tab press? How is it? Screen listeners. Listeners, tab press. Listeners, yeah, is there a prevent default here? Okay, yep, exactly what I needed. I don't know why it's not going away. So the prevent default means that, hey, don't do what you're supposed to do, meaning don't go to this plus button. Here I can even do return null. Or maybe the redirect is good here, because if somehow you got here, maybe through a deep link, I want to redirect. I don't want you to be stuck there. Anyway, in the layout of the tabs, in this plus, I say, hey, don't do anything with prevent. That doesn't move there. But I want to manually router.push/new, meaning that the how's it called? The model still works because I'm left here and I'm putting the model on top. I hope that this bug is only here, like not being able to dismiss it totally. Yeah, I have a, okay. Perfect. And now all I have to do is take this one and put it in between everything. Not here, in between here. Maybe even put like a view around the plus sign. And what's that? I want to style it a bit. So import view from React Native. That view is going to have a BG neutral 700 with a rounded XL with P2. I need the whole tab bar a little bit larger for this specific button. style, no, tab bar style, background, yes, it works. And if I do padding top 10, or maybe height more, what's going on here? If I do wave, oh, you helped me with create tab view UI icons. Yeah, I think that's what I'm kind of doing. And now I don't need a file at all. That's interesting. Okay, if I don't have a file, but if I don't have a file, it's not here. I think I need a file. But what's the problem here? Anyway, I'm going yeah, I know. I'm not going to have even this view. I'm just going to leave the plus sign. And if I do that, it's new thread. Perfect. Just the styles is a bit different. I don't have the patience to style it properly, but it works. Maybe I can find like a plus sign like this somewhere. Perfect. Let's go ahead and remove a new post from the top in the index list header component. I don't want this one. And I can go from here, hello. And if I go back, it still works. Perfect. No route name plus. Yep. Git add, git commit. Create post tab button. Okay, I think 100% of people voted to continue the episode 2. Now let me know, what would you like? Let's do a start Q&A. What features would you like to see in episode 2? Maybe, but that's, I don't think I'm going to manage. But I'm going to try to link Supabase locally so that we can, I'm going to do npx Supabase db link, how is it called? Supabase link dash project ref, and I'm going to give a project reference which I will find here. By linking the project, we are basically creating a local version of a configuration for our Supabase, and we can keep like the configuration and also the database schema and so on locally in our source code as well. Here you're going to need the database password. I note it down somewhere. If you forgot, you can go into the database and go into the reset database password. That's not a problem. And after we have that, I can do npx supabase db pool linked. And that should pull the database, but most probably I need the Docker. So let's go ahead and run Docker. This is optional, by the way. You don't have to. Docker. Jirka is recommending fetching posts with likes count and comments count. Okay, let's do likes, comments, fetch post with likes and comments count. We can do that, and with Supabase it's easy, like we can do that with one request, getting the post with the number of the remote database migration history does not repair. I think I just have to delete the migrations here because it didn't work initially. So let's try again. Reposting post and comment tree with reply to comments. That's a good one. I will actually write them here. So yeah, the purpose was to create a comment tree with reply to comments. Yeah, if we do reply, we're gonna get into something like this, or even creating threads is also a good feature. Creating threads. Let's do yes here. Basically, now in our migrations, we have a file that if anytime we delete our Supabase and we want to recreate it again, this is going to be the file that will have all the information about our tables, policies, functions, and so on. And we can also self-host it as well. But why I did this, git add, git commit Supabase local, was to do npx Supabase types db, how is it, Supabase TypeScript. I want to do this super fast. Supabase gen, yeah, it's npx Supabase gen types TypeScript -- linked and dump them into the source types database types ts. There is we need in the source a new folder called types, and this command is going to dump the database types here. Now in the lib, in the Supabase here, what we can do is we can import I think it's database from types / database types. And this database, we can type the create client, and this way our Supabase is going to be fully typed. And for example, in our, let's say, authentication, no, let's say in the protected tabs index, when we fetch data, now it knows that it has content, it has user, it has full name, and so on. So now it's a much better way of handling that. And we no longer need our own custom types from here, which I'm not going to delete, I'm going to probably comment out. Because in the components post list item, when we want to say that, hey, I'm expecting here a post, what I will do is I will say import, not database, but I think tables. and I will say that this post is of type tables post. So it's going to be synchronized with what we have there. Yeah, it doesn't know that we actually fetched also the user inside that query. You can actually do, type post with user and say that create this table post with table profiles, and then use this one here. And it's going to know that we're going to have a user. And similar to other relations, like you can create these types, but later it's going to be connected with the database. And every time you do the database changes, you can execute this gen command again to update your local types, so you have fully typed application. Nested reply and real-time notifications. Perfect. All right, guys. So next week we're going to do part 2. Today we managed actually to do a lot in terms of building this threads application, both on the front end and the back end. We started from absolutely scratch. We set up a project. We set up Expo Router. We learned how to use Expo Router with screens, with layouts. We learned how to set up Tailwind and use it to design our application. We've built our feed, our posts, the create screen. Then we integrated Supabase Backend. We learned about authentication, how to integrate it in our application, how to protect screens for authenticated and unauthenticated users. Then we set up our database. We learned how to fetch and integrate Supabase client in our React Native app. And we also learned how to use TanStack query to run optimized queries and mutations and interact with the data, with remote data. In the next week, we're going to dive even deeper. I'm going to prepare even more features. Most probably we're going to do likes, comments, not comments, but post replies. I want to cover storage. I want to cover this unique use case of threads and let's say Twitter as well, where we have like trees of replies where we can reply to a reply and the whole tree there. Featured post. Not sure what do you mean by that. Thank you very much everyone who has joined us live. Let me think if we're gonna have an extended tutorial right now or we should keep it for later. For today, yeah, most probably the extended tutorial is going to be later because we're going to take it step by step together. So thank you very much for joining. I'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment what other projects you'd like me to build. Go ahead and check out React Native Mastery on our website at notjust.dev/React Native Mastery if you want to master building mobile applications with React Native Expo and other modern tools